Well, welcome, Elizabeth. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks.
And welcome, Riggs.
Yes.
Right off the top, I want to ask Elizabeth, why are we sitting in this room right now with you about to tell your story about being married to Andrew, having extensive first responder experience in the military and the police? And obviously, Riggs is your service dog, Andrew.
That's right.
So my first question is to Elizabeth, why are we telling this story today?
Well, I think it's important to remember that PTSD affects not just the serving member, but the family, of course. And sometimes those symptoms and what they experience can be relentless every day. So I'm here today because Andrew had asked me if I would be willing to share our story. And at first I was reluctant, maybe even procrastinated a little while in preparing what I was going to put together, just because it's not something that I've thought about, really deeply reflected on over the years. You know, what is our story? You know, where did this start to shape up? You know, what were the things I observed from Andrew? How did this affect our family? These are things that, you know, when you're in such deep survival mode for so many years, you don't take the time to sit down and really reflect on that. So for me, this experience has been, it's been amazing, I have to say, like this past week of just thinking about our years together and how it all started. I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what our lives have been like, even though it's tough to say that out loud. But yeah, that's why we're here today. It's just we're here to share our story. You know, a raw, hopefully a raw account of what we've been through, and hopefully willing to share some insight for those who are living with and loving a first responder.
Excellent. Thank you for being here, Elizabeth. It takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing. So thank you for that. Just for some context for the people listening, Andrew, how long have you and Elizabeth been together? How many kids do you have?
Yeah, we have known each other since we were 18 years old. We met in our last year of high school. We had intentionally a family very young. Our parents were young when they had us, and I think we both had similar values and continue to in how we raise our family. Our children are already 18 and 14, so having them, you know, well before most people even decide to go to school, you know, post-secondary school. We, you know, we have an adult kid, which is weird. But
It's hard to say that.
You look like kids yourselves.
Oh, thank you.
I think, you know, some of that might have led to our success in still being here, is having known each other well before I ever experienced any of those incidents that has led to my injury.
So how many years service do you have? I understand you were in the military and in the police. So how
Yes.
many years in each?
So I have only 6 months longer in the military than I do as a police officer, which is 24. So I had started in the military just slightly before I was hired with the London Police Service.
Okay. And you've been with Elizabeth this entire time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think what's unique about our story is that we were together pre-working careers, and then during what we're calling that messy middle, and then sort of Andrew's retirement and or, you know, completion of work. So we've really had to learn and relearn how to be partners during this whole thing.
So I'm very intrigued by when Andrew says, I'm going to join the military. What are your thoughts when
Oh my gosh, we were 18, or like we had just,
You came with me to the recruiting
I think
center.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
You brought me with you.
She
Yeah.
wasn't going to keep me then, Scott, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I did break up with him twice. Tried to get rid of him, but he wanted to stick.
Yeah.
So you were excited about Andrew joining the military.
Well, it's honorable, of course, and
Yeah.
I mean, nobody in my family has really been in the military, so this was going to be a new experience. But I also knew at the same time that he wanted to be a police officer. That was always his goal. So, of course, when we were young, I thought, this is great, though, because if he's a police officer, he's essential service, which means he's not going to be sent away. So in my mind, I felt like that was safe, right? That he wasn't going to go off and wasn't going to go do, tours overseas and everything else. But well, you'll hear from our story tomorrow, that wasn't really the case. He did serve overseas, and that seemed to be a bit of a straw that broke us a little bit. So.
And where was that service, Andrew?
Libya.
In Libya?
Yes.
And how long were you in Libya?
Almost 6 months,
6 months?
something like that.
Yeah.
5 and a bit.
What was it like, Elizabeth, when Andrew comes home one day and says, I'm going to Libya for 6 months?
Well, we talked about it for quite a while, I want to say. And I knew that it was something important for him to do. And I can't remember what the occasion was, but I think I said, okay, here's my gift to you. I think you should just go ahead and do it. I'll support you. We'll support you as a family. We'll do whatever it takes. I want to say our kids were young too.
Aiden was 5.
He was 5 when you left, right? But this was a conversation, because you did workup training. This was a longer process for you to go. So yeah, like 3 and 8 maybe they would have been, something like that. Yeah, they were quite young. But it was important to him to do this, and so I supported it.
So the transition home from Libya, how was that?
It was rough.
But not at first. It was like a honeymoon.
It was a little bit, yeah.
It was great.
It was more like, from my perspective, not with the relationship, but we evacuated from Libya. It wasn't, here's your tour, and okay, the next group comes in and whatever, right? Like, we were the last rotation. We made it home. I made it home with a bunch of heroes, and I went right to work because I was delayed getting home. So I felt this obligation to my service to go almost immediately to work, where all my coworkers had all this leave. That was a mistake. So even though the first few weeks of my return were very much like that, of course you have all that time away. We genuinely love each other. We missed each other. So all of the trauma aside, our love was there. Mm-hmm. And then when that...
It was blissful
until
it wasn't.
Until it wasn't. And once everything caught up with me, it deteriorated very, very quickly. Yeah.
And what were the first signs and symptoms that you saw, Elizabeth, when Andrew's mental health was deteriorating?
Oh gosh, there's lots of things I observed, of course, but I mean, he was very withdrawn, very recluse, spent a lot of time just hanging out in the basement. He found it difficult to be around a lot of people, around like our family. We would, I'm Italian, so we do a lot of big events, we celebrate everything, and for Andrew it was just too much, so he either wouldn't attend, or if he did attend, I think some of the ways he would cope with that would be to have a drink or so, and then it was a slippery slope. It was fun Andy for a while until it wasn't. So there was a lot of drinking, a lot of arguing, a lot of just. I felt like I walked on eggshells a lot. He was very reactive to a lot of things. I think his genuine care for our kids wasn't well received in terms of them feeling like he was overprotective and just trying to control everything he probably could control at the time. Just a general decline in his ability to want to find joy in life, I think, is what we noticed. Did
you recognize that, Andrew, in yourself? No?
Not at all.
Was Elizabeth telling you?
No, she probably was afraid to.
Yeah.
Because most of anything that she would have told me would have been seen as criticism, and I would have internalized that with guilt and felt that I wasn't living up to the partner that I would have wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So no, there wasn't a lot of that at all.
So obviously the straw broke at some time, because we're sitting here and you're telling your story. I'm going to ask Elizabeth this. Sure. What was the straw that broke the camel's back that led to Andrew starting to get some help?
Well, we're going to tell the story tomorrow, but as a preview, it all culminated in one evening when I had been out because I had started to work on myself and wanting to find joy in the things that I loved. So I was out for the evening, and Andrew was home with the kids, and I think I came home. I'm not sure exactly how the argument had started, but he had been drinking and he grabbed a bunch of stuff and just threw it across the room. I had no idea, like, this was not the man that I married. I wasn't sure what was going on at that time, you know, what was driving the behavior, but he grabbed his keys and he just left. And I thought, man, like, getting behind the wheel after you've been drinking and just taking off, I couldn't even reconcile that in my brain. And so I didn't know what was going on. I had lots going on with the kids and, you know, work and everything else. So I just, you know, got the kids, I think, were in bed at the time. And no, they weren't.
They were there.
They were there. Okay.
That's what made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not how Ava reminds me or tells me, but
No, they were there.
yeah. So it was just the straw. So what happened was the next, I don't even know what happened with Andrew coming home. He says he came home, slipped into the basement, that we had a spare bedroom in the basement, and then he passed out. So I was like, I have too much to do. I have shit going on in my life. I have to work, the kids, everything else. So I got, you know, kids ready for bed, went to bed, and then the next morning I woke up, you know, do the things that you normally do as a parent. You just keep on keeping on, right? You get the lunches packed and you get ready for work and you get everyone out the door, and it's a miracle if you do. But that morning, I don't know what happened, but something told me I needed to go talk to him. Mm-hmm. And so I brought the kids in the room with him, and he was passed out, and we just kind of nudged him awake, and we just had that conversation, like, this has to stop. Like, we cannot live like this as a family. This isn't well for anyone. So I think the kids being there was pretty impactful for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he committed to getting help. He said, yeah, I will do whatever I need to do.
Good for you, Andrew.
And I'm almost there.
Well,
you know, there's always improvement, right?
Yeah.
Journey.
But I did take steps right away.
So what do those steps look like in a nutshell?
Yeah, for me, it was making an appointment. I decided to engage the military first. I did not have a lot of confidence in the route of policing. But I made an appointment with the medical officer, and one of the first things he said to me was, "I believe you." Like quote, I believe in you, Andrew. I believe you have PTSD. Now let's get you the help you need. So I had been placed internally with a psychologist until I could get into the operational stress injury clinic in London, which I had an appointment yesterday. I still go.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in between, from deciding to get rigs to PTSD retreats that I've gone to just being available to other first responders as well that are suffering has just been a blessing in this journey of healing.
And you now have an organization that, and I know you're both involved in this organization. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization and what you're trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Veterans and Everyday Heroes, or VA for short. I began that after receiving a lot of support from police recruits. I taught at the Ontario Police College for about 4 years and had rigs with me every day I was there. And the impact that he has had on these young officers has been huge. And their support to us and our desire to bring kindness to other first responders and military veterans, as well as raising money for other service dogs, because they're not cheap, $20,000 to $30,000 to $35,000 each.
Mm-hmm.
When I decided to build that organization, Elizabeth was always right with me, and is a director as well, in assisting me in carrying out all of these things that we're trying to do nationwide for other first responders as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're happy to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and
how-
involve our family too, which is amazing too. Our daughters come out to some events and helped us out, and our son from the side, but they're champions of
Yeah.
it too.
Well, that's awesome. I want to finish up, Elizabeth, by asking you, what is your advice to a spouse like you where you're observing the symptoms. You might even not know what it is. What is your advice? Obviously, Andrew said, he didn't think that you were telling him because you might have been scared about how it would be received. And what is your advice to somebody else that might be out there in your shoes as a spouse?
Well, it's interesting that you said scared. Yes, I suppose I was apprehensive to bring it up, but at the same time, it's that culture that existed, right? I signed up for this. This was what we as a family signed up for. So I didn't think that I had the right to say anything. Like to say, wait a minute, this isn't working for us. Because the culture is, are you okay? There's lots of stuff going on. Let's keep moving forward. So I don't know about advice, but I guess I would want them to know that they're not alone, that there's lots of families that experience this every single day.
Yeah.
And it's important to take time to recognize it for what it is.
That's great. Any advice for you for your fellow first responders who may be going down the rabbit hole, feeling like you were feeling when you reached out for help? What's your advice, Andrew?
I think because this is something that I deal with on a more routine basis, of those that are maybe coming into the awareness that they're not the best version of themselves that they could be, that there is a lack of trust in what's available, where their lives or where their job, their career may end up as a result of being open about having some difficulties. I don't even want to say mental health injuries, but some difficulties in what's expected of them in the job and what they're taking back to their families. Is trust that there are people out there that genuinely have their best interests in mind and are here to support them in every single way a family member can. That there is better times. Even as I struggle still through my own journey, I know that there are always better days ahead, no matter how much difficulty I'm having today. So know that there's a great family out there that will welcome you and take you in. And those things that you're afraid of, they don't matter.
Very inspiring, both of you. I want to end on a lighter note, because this is quite an in-depth and very serious topic. Riggs, your house.
Yes.
He's a big dog. I saw you two sitting down on the couch here, and Riggs just kind of jumped in between. Family of four,
Yep.
big dog like this. How does Riggs fit into the family?
You barely notice that he's even there. He's, despite prior to our interview him being kind of whiny, he is really, really just a piece of furniture. Like, he finds a spot in the room and he just plops himself there, and he's content to stay there until I go somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the only thing that you would really be aware of is maybe all this hair everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the
I was
biggest-
gonna
We have a
ask
lot of roller
Elizabeth.
brushes at home.
Well, I want to thank you for being so open and honest and candid. I'm sure that the conversation that you've had today, when watched by some people out in the first responder community, will actually help them. And it's an honor to be able to interview you today. And thank you for talking, Elizabeth. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Riggs.
Yeah, especially this guy. He works hard.
He looks like he's working hard.
That's right. Thanks, Scott.
Yes, thank you.